Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wareham Planning Board meeting of February 28th, 2022. Looks like we have a quorum of members, so I'll take a roll call so that we can open the meeting and get started. If I could have an aye if you're here. Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Corbett? I don't see Sam. I don't see him on. Is Sam not with us yet?
I don't think he is, but he could join any minute, but he's not on yet.
Okay. Ms. Gleason
Yeah,
and Mr. Baptiste. Have you muted yourself again, Mike?
I don't see him. Is he there?
He's there. He's on. Yeah, he's on. Looks like he's on Sonia's PC in the office. Wave your hand, Mike.
He signed in as Sonia. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then myself, Mike King. I think I'm here. So we have 4 out of 5 members this evening. The preliminary business originally was the reorganization of the board. Aaron, do you think we should put that off until we have Sam obviously present to do that?
Sam he joined in. He's here.
Okay.
Sam joined in late, but he's there.
There he is. Hey, Sam. Nope, he's muted. There we go.
Having some computer issues this evening.
Okay, well, we'll try to make it as easy as we can on you. So for the preliminary business this evening, we will call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Everyone is present. Preliminary business this evening is the reorganization of the planning board. As some of you may or may not know, Ken Swenson, the planning chair, has stepped away for personal reasons, and we are now, I've been acting as vice chair, running the meetings until we can have a reorganization vote. So having said that, I would entertain a motion to nominate a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. So if we want to start with the chair, I would entertain a motion to nominate.
Make a motion, we nominate Mike King for chair.
Second.
Okay, you're both off my Christmas list, by the way. Having a motion by Sam Corbett and seconded by Mike Baptiste, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Corbett?
Aye.
Ms. Gleason?
aye.
Mr. Baptiste?
Aye.
And the acting vice chair, now looking to be the new chairman, I will vote aye as well. For myself, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Can you explain what the difference is between the two posts that are left?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Could you explain what the duties are of the two positions that are left to vote on?
The vice chair basically is exactly the same as the chair in the chair's absence. It's responsible for running the meeting, making sure that everything gets taken care of. The clerk is responsible for minutes and liaising with the planning board office in the event that either the chair or the vice chair are not available.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Jane Gleason for clerk.
Eek.
I will.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second that broke up?
Me.
Mr. Baptiste? Thank
That's
you,
me,
sir.
yep.
Okay, having a motion made by Mr. Corbett and seconded by Mr. Baptiste, we'll take a vote for Ms. Gleason as the clerk of the Wareham Planning Board. Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Corbett?
Aye.
Ms. Gleason?
I will abstain from voting for myself.
Okay. That's good. Now you're not culpable in the decision. Mr. Baptiste?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, so that's 4-0-1. Congratulations, Ms. Gleason.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Carl Schultz to be vice chair.
Second.
That's excellent.
You're off my
idea.
Christmas list.
I don't have many left.
I gotta say, I don't think any of us are gonna be talking to one another pretty soon. Having a motion by Mr. Corbett and seconded by Mr. Baptiste, we'll take a vote. Mr. Schultz?
Following Ms. Gleason's lead, I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
I don't want to be culpable.
Mr. Corbett? Mr. Corbett?
Aye.
Ms. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, 4-0-1. Congratulations, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to yourself and to Jane.
Okay, having dispatched of that part of piece of business, we'll move on to, well, first of all, I'd like to jump down just a little bit, just to save some folks some time in case they're here. Under continued public hearings, 33-21 site plan review for 0 Route 25. It's my understanding by email that applicant has requested a continuance. So for anyone that's here for that project, that won't be heard tonight.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, do we actually need to vote to make that continuance happen?
I
think
would
so.
suggest that I would suggest that we do, just to keep it all kind of clean.
I move that we continue 3321 site plan review, Wareham PV1 LLC 0 Route 25. I think they wanted 314 to 314.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a
Betsy
second?
Mason on, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's quite all right. Go ahead, Betsy.
No, I just wanted to say, yes, 314, and thank you very much. Didn't mean to
Okay.
interrupt,
No worries.
and congratulations.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Schultz to continue to 314 per the applicant's request. Do we have a second?
Second.
Having a motion by Mr. Schultz and second by Mr. Baptiste. Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Corbett,
Yay.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, 5-0-0.
Point of order.
Okay.
Can I explain my vote?
Sure.
This came in at 4:54. I was talking to Ken about this earlier. I'm sitting here reading to try to catch up tonight, so I'm up to speed. I'm reading all the back literature, and then after I do that, I find out it's continued. We need to have a deadline. I recommended Wednesday at noon, but Ken didn't think that was possible. So at the very least, Monday noon, you stop accepting anything, continuances or anything. I'm tired of doing the work ahead of time and then having the applicant come in at 4:54 and say, I want to continue. In my view, it's a waste of my time, and I'm tired of it.
Yep. I would have to agree 100% with you, Sam. Here's my stack of reading for the last 2 hours.
Exactly.
And that was part of it. So yes, I agree. We'll have to perhaps we can get together as a workshop or something with Ken and see if we can come up with a reasonable deadline for submission of any kind of documentation or requests for something being heard.
Anything.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
I'd like to make a motion that the planning board does not accept any new documents or information except under the most extreme circumstances after the close of business on the Thursday before the meeting.
Second.
Okay, having a motion put forth by Mr. Schultz and seconded by Mr. Corbett. We could take a vote. Obviously, we would have to check to make sure we're within our rights to do this, but at least the feelings of the board will be on the record.
Yes, and we can
Mr.
certainly discuss with the planning board if there's a problem with our,
With our
Position.
intent?
yeah.
I agree. Okay. So having a motion and a second, Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, 5-0-0.
And Mr. Chair, as a comment, I believe the zoning board has a very similar position. Aaron, can you confirm that? I believe that's the case, right?
I'm honestly unsure if they have that position on things. I would have to check with them, but it's a possibility that that is something
Okay.
that happened. I'm not sure.
No, Carl, they do not have that policy.
Oh, hi, Ken. I didn't know you were there. I would have directed my question to you.
Ken, do you feel we're in the our rights to set this type of policy?
Yes, I think you are in your rights. I just think it should be kept as a policy and not a hard and fast regulation in case you want to accept information closer to the time of the meeting.
The motion
It
did
would
say,
be strictly, yeah. Go ahead. Ken. I was just going to
I was gonna
reiterate
say
that.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. I'll wait.
Well, I was going to echo what you said in the beginning, which was it would be at the pleasure of the board as to whether to accept something or not.
That sounds right.
And we don't want to come off as arbitrary in those cases. So it would have to be an extreme or unusual or something that, you know, there's all kinds of personal things that come up, or the applicant has an emergency, or but we could rely on the office, the planning board office, to kind of evaluate those reasons, and if they recommend that we accept the document, then we can discuss it.
Through you,
Yeah.
Mike, Carl, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, that sounds
Has to
good.
be extreme.
I'm saying you're breaking up. I didn't understand what you said.
I just said I agree with Carl. The reasons have to be extreme.
Yeah, I agree. There's just that, like we discussed at the last meeting, just too much 11th hour changes going on that, you know, it either steals time from us or it puts us in a position where we're not able to fully absorb the material and be in a position to speak about it intelligently. Okay.
And the agendas are published on Thursday, so that should give us plenty of time over the weekend.
Yep. Okay. 32-21 definitive subdivision plan, 362248 Robin Wood Road. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Bob Rogers, GAF Engineering, and Tom Gay is in the meeting as well.
Good evening.
Good evening. Looking at Mr. Rowley's peer review from January 24, 2022, it looks to me like we're like 99% where we need to be. to consider this for a vote this evening based on obviously input from the board. The one thing that popped into mind that I was reading while I was reading is the street name. Has that been resolved as far as what the street name is going to be?
Yes, sir. Yes, we provided three possible names, and so Haven Court was approved, I believe, with input from the planning board.
Okay.
So we have final revised plans dated February 22nd, which changed the street name to Haven Court, referred to the covenant on the recordable lotting sheet 4, and just made a correction. There was a reference to a street width that needed to be corrected. So we made those changes, and we resubmitted the plans either on the 23rd or the 24th, but they're dated February 22nd.
22nd. Okay, that was the one that I was looking at too. Okay. Charlie, is there anything that you see that we've discussed as far as the plans that hasn't been addressed that we really should be talking about?
No, I looked over the proposed approval certificate and everything that was prepared by Aaron, and he's covered pretty much what I had in my report, so I have no further comment.
Okay, thank you. I read through it extensively. I read through a lot of the abutters and the concern that they have with the project. I really don't have anything else to add from my position. Is there anybody on the board that would like to weigh in on any more information that they'd like to share before we move forward?
Mr. Chairman, the only comment I would make, as you did, I have reviewed and re-reviewed all of the abutters' comments. I appreciate all of the concerns that the abutters have raised. My point in my consideration for when we cast a vote will be that most, in my opinion, most of those concerns are beyond the purview of subdivision control law and really need to be addressed at the time individual lots are being proposed, and flooding and things like that beyond the subdivision work can be addressed by the Conservation Commission on a lot by lot basis. That's my opinion. And the concerns are real and legitimate, and there's an awful lot, but it's my opinion that it's beyond the purview of subdivision control law.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. Is anybody else would like to weigh in a little bit?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I agree with Carl. Rereading the letters, there's a lot of legitimate concerns, even in past projects. I don't think we can address them personally in this board, this situation, but I think going forward, we need to make sure that they are addressed when they come up to review by conservation and other agencies. I wish we could do more to help the people who wrote those letters.
Right, I agree. I mean, nobody likes to see their piece of heaven changed, and I get that. I mean, I've been in that exact position myself in the past, so I understand. You know, they've got their slice of heaven, and they would like to see it remain the same forever. And unfortunately, forever is just not in the world that we live in. I mean, things are forever changing. So, you know, their concerns that are outside of our purview are legitimate and real, but nothing that we can control.
I would like to reiterate that point, Mr. Chairman, that I think that it's tough for people to understand when they're faced with a project like this coming to their neighborhood, that there are rules and regulations that the planning board is, I hate to say this, stuck with, working with, but that's what we have to work with. And beyond that, there's not much that we can do. So I think just having the general population understand that that's what we're limited to in our ability to be helpful to them. So.
Oh, Matt,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to put the developer on notice as well, to be sincere on the promises he's made in the future and in the past. A lot of complaints are that the developer didn't do what he promised to do. And he's going to be before us again, and we've gone over this and over this and over this. We find mistakes, things are omitted, and we're nice enough. And Charlie goes out and we work together, we resolve them. But I got to tell you, if I was one of those people who spent all that money and letters upon letters and calls and nothing happens, I think we need to be careful that we scrutinize the developer more on our end if we can.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And it's funny you mentioned that, Sam, because that was running through my head as I was reading through Charlie's comments in the changes that were agreed to. And it brought to mind a developer from the past that agreed to a bunch of stuff, didn't do half of it, and was caught by surprise when we held his feet to the fire and made him make substantial, expensive changes to make good on what he promised. And I think the developer on this project, it's a very high-end development. They're very expensive homes. It's in a beautiful area of town. Then the developer should be aware that we're going to expect them to deliver exactly what they promise and nothing less.
So, Mr. Chairman, to you, through you to the planning board office, we need to be sure that in order to make sure what happens, what you're saying, is that we write a clear certificate of approval such that the zoning enforcement officer can clearly understand our intent and our expectations. So that document, we need to make sure that it's clear and that we didn't miss anything.
Right.
I look to help from Aaron and Ken to make sure, and Charlie, to make sure that that final document is clear for the zoning enforcement officer.
Yeah, no, I agree. There should be no ambiguity within it whatsoever. It should be very easy to understand and to enforce.
Mike, can I stick my nose in here? You put an awful lot of faith in the zoning enforcement officer. We put conditions. We ask for certain things to be done in these projects, and we have no support on the other end. That's a big problem. It really is. You know, we're making promises we can't deliver on because we get no support from the people who are supposed to be behind us.
Well, Mike, I think Kyle kind of hit the nail on the head with that problem, which is the COA is written with zero left to interpretation. So that if the contractor developer does not do what is promised in the approval, there's no excuse or reason why the zone enforcement officer can't come in and demand changes to from with a COA.
Well,
I think it's going to be on us.
Right. We have a paper trail to back us up. And the thing is, I don't think he's doing his job on the other end. I mean, that's a sore subject with me, as you know. I won't go any further. Probably get in trouble.
Well, I think we can. I think we can start to mend that fence if we start writing some really concrete documentation in the COAs. Something that has teeth that we can say, here it is. It's in black and white. You agreed to it.
Yep.
If he's not doing it, send out the zoning enforcement officer and have him have a chat with him and let him know that needs to be done, or there'll be no certificate of occupancies approved for lots. And then they're going to have unhappy homeowners to deal with. So it kind of puts it back in their court.
To that point, Mr. Chairman, we have the planning board in our COAs are now adding planning board inspections so that at least we're getting direct notice either from one of our members or from one of our representatives on our opinion of compliance, which we can then discuss with the zoning enforcement officer.
I like
But
that.
those inspections, if you read, are now enumerated in the COA. I hopefully they're clear enough and have enough teeth.
Okay, excellent. I think we've heard from all the planning board members who want to speak to this. The applicants, do you have anything that you'd like to say before we put this to a vote?
I would just like to say that throughout this process, and it's been a lengthy process, I think our team has enjoyed working with your board and your team and your peer review engineer. We spent a lot of time taking into consideration his comments and recommendations and the ultimate plan that you have before you tonight. A lot of effort and cooperation went into it. With respect to my clients in this development, I do believe that the end product is something that Wareham will be proud of. I think it will be beneficial for the neighborhood and just development in general. And I hope that the neighbors, once this is all complete, feel that my clients did right by them. I have a connection to this area as well. I grew up boating by that. I have family and friends that live in that area, and I want to see a good project go in there. And I have confidence that that's what they'll bring to you. So first, I just want to thank you for your time and cooperation. It was a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to the next project I have in Wareham.
Okay, thank you. All right. If nobody has any objections, then I would entertain a motion to vote on 32-21.
Close the public hearing first.
Yeah,
I
It was
thought we did that at
closed.
the last.
yeah. One,
Yeah.
you guys,
We
the
did
board
that
has
at the
already-
last meeting.
Yeah, the board's already voted to close the public hearing, and you've already voted on the waivers in a previous meeting. So the vote you're doing now is just to approve the subdivision.
Correct. So having said that, I would entertain a motion to either approve or not approve 32-21 definitive subdivision plan for 364028 Robinwood Road, map 4, lots A, B, and C, 7-lot subdivision.
So moved.
So move to approve or
Approve.
disapprove?
You said
Thank
approve.
you.
I thought you said approve. Approve 3221 definitive subdivision plan, Resi LLC, 3642 Robinwood Road, with the previously voted on waivers and to be documented in the COA. That's my motion, I guess.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. Take a vote. Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Corbett?
Aye.
Ms. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, 5-0-0. Congratulations, gentlemen. We look forward to seeing this this project come to life and really enhance that area of our town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the planning office, when will the document be ready for us to sign, the COA?
It's already ready to go, so it has to be printed out, and you guys can come to the office anytime this week to sign it.
Thank you.
Can we, Aaron, can I get an advance copy of that so I can read it prior to coming into the office? I don't want to be rushed through it.
Yeah, I can have Ken send you out a copy before.
All right, super. Thank you.
Could that be to the whole board?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 3 under preliminary business, Surecran Services Incorporated, Chapter 61A, converting 1.25 acres of land from agricultural use to commercial use. I read through this. Is this, am I understanding this correctly, that we're simply weighing in on whether or not to exercise the first right of, or to suggest that we exercise the first right of refusal on the property?
That's correct. That the basis of this is a request to the Board of Selectmen for a release from Chapter 61A, whereby they've been provided with reduced taxation based on the agricultural use that they've designated for the property. And they want to change that to commercial use and allow the solar farm to be developed on the site. And the Board of Selectmen, what they do is they send this around to the planning board for your input as to whether or not they should exercise that right of first refusal. But there's also something else that you can deal with this in other ways as well too. And what I'm doing, I'm showing you the scheme, where the property is located that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Can you all see that?
Yeah, it's the little sliver there between the active cranberry bogs.
Yeah, there's a parcel in here, and this is the Fletcher parcel, the one that you have under review right now that's been asked for an extension. And this gets added into the solar projects that are already taking place on other portions of this property around here, where the solar farm by Blue Wave has been constructed. One of the things we can do is we can potentially negotiate other aspects of this plan for change of the property, rather than say we'll purchase it and take it off of their project. What we do is we say that here we have the town garage on this parcel here, and running right through it is that access that you were dealing with when you had the A&R for the property that is being reviewed right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this easement cuts right through the middle of the town garage property, and doesn't allow the ability to reach across and spread out a little bit more on the upper portion. So what I think you should recommend is that the access way get moved to the northern part of the site, where there already is another access way, but take it off of the, release it from the middle of the property and how it affects what's going on and on the town yard. So a quid pro quo.
So the easement that you're talking about that goes through the town barn is the easement to this piece of property that we're discussing now?
That's correct.
Oh, I see.
It comes down through here and whoops, past that parcel right there, rides frontage to that parcel here.
Yeah. So by allowing them to remove that from agricultural so that it can or potentially be set up for solar, we would in return request that easement be removed from where its present state and moved up.
That's correct.
Further up the property.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, could I weigh in on that a little bit?
Absolutely.
That easement is not exclusive to Shurkran. That easement was granted to multiple owners by the state. When Route 25 was built, their access used to be from Cranberry Highway to multiple properties in that area. So moving that access with respect to Shurkran does not remove that access with respect to all the other owners that have rights in it. So I think that would have to be negotiated with each individual, since they were all
Yeah.
granted the same rights by the state.
So that sounds like a convoluted mess.
Well, it was the only access that the state did this back in the, I think I can't remember exactly whether it was the 80s or not, but when Route 25 was extended to where it is today, it cut off the access coming from Cranberry Highway northerly into all these parcels.
Mhm.
And so by doing that, it left these parcels landlocked. So they created that 20-foot easement that starts at Charge Pond Road and goes through, and in that document, it states every parcel owner who was granted the rights of access through that.
Mhm.
So it's not just affecting that one parcel.
Right. So negotiating that particular detail in return for their request really doesn't make any sense.
Well, perhaps, I don't know that it doesn't make some sense, perhaps, if it's beneficial for Shurkran, but it still leaves it intact on the ground. There's no question about
Right.
that. Until it's
So it does-
renegotiated some other place with everybody else.
So it really doesn't benefit the town barn at all, because it's still there, it's still being used just by other people.
Yeah, and all it is an easement. The town still owns the property.
Right.
It certainly clears up one user of it.
The thing is, on the northern part of that sliver of land where they want to come in, Charlie, there's, I believe, a big water hole in this bogging process that's working now. By taking the easement, moving to someplace else, how are you going to cross that property to get to the other properties to the west, I believe, east?
Well, that's true, Mike. Relocating it all together still has to grant access or give access to all the people who have that as an easement right to get to their own piece. So you're absolutely right. It would have to connect somehow. And that would not be necessarily an easy thing to do.
Right.
One of the things that I would recommend is that the easement, since it doesn't really matter where it goes on the town property, could start up at some portion of the northern parcel, follow along the rear property line to the location of the existing easement, and then follow that easement through there and continue it. So people get they continue to get the access that they're looking for, but they don't affect the ability of town yard to go across the middle of their property.
The easement that runs across the town bond property now, is that an actual dirt road, a
Yeah.
passable way?
Yes,
Yes,
dirt road.
it is. It was improved to a 20-foot width. I forget the name of the solar property that this services, but it's to the east of everything that, and you can see the solar project from Route 25. It's to the east of the Route 25 piece that you continued to the 14th. It's to the east of other properties that have solar projects on them. So it was improved through the area in several places in order to gain access for fire department access to it, as well as access to the various solar farms affected.
Right. So if we moved it up to the upper portion of the bond property and then ran it down the property line, that's still, that way has to be reconstructed.
Somebody would have to.
There isn't
That's
one.
right. Somebody'd have to
Right.
rebuild it. That's right.
If I may, there is another access at the far end of the town property. At the end of or the beginning of the quarter mile, there's a road that goes down to the cranberry bog that my wife and my dog walk often. I believe it's controlled by the solar farm on the other side of the bogs. because the other day it was locked. We went down to the cranberry bog area where we walk the dog, and the gentleman unlocked it and came by and went all the way across to the solar facility on the other side of the cranberry bogs. It's locked and unlocked by, I believe, by the bog owner. But if we could make some agreement up there, it'd be a lot better than having them go through town property that is normally locked with valuable town property. It's the very, very end of this up here by the quarter mile. And they use it now to get to the solar farm that's across the way. I think it'd be easier to investigate that than deal with this thing that goes right through town property. You know what I mean, Charlie?
Yes, I do. There would have to be some legal mechanism by which the easement is relocated so that those who have the current easement would have the same rights in a different location. So that's going to take a little bit of negotiation, I would assume, with the various property owners and also through the town in order to get that to happen. Everybody's going to have to agree to it. And I'm not sure who the party would be that would actually put that document together or figure out if that easement is the appropriate location. So I think it is going to take a little work, not to say that it can't happen. And it may be that that access is just as good. I've not actually gone there myself. I'd have to take a ride up to see what it looks like. But if the access is just as good, there's no reason for not relocating it. But I think a little bit of effort's going to have to go into it to properly define it and make sure that the rights of those that received rights from the state have those same rights to get to their property.
I agree. Both of these options are going to take work. I was there yesterday walking the dog with the wife, and I was at the town barn getting my sticker today, and looking at both ways of getting down there. They're both going to take some work. That up there is a direct access. It's an easy access. It's easier than going through the town property. And I agree, Charlie, they're both going to take work. In my opinion, this may be easier and it may take less time.
So, but regardless, if the applicant is looking for our blessing to convert this property, and the easement is what we feel is a respectable benefit for the town to do that, all that work is going to be on the applicant, not on us.
That's right.
So what exactly is our vote tonight, or our suggestion tonight is to approve not exercising the first right of refusal and allowing them to go forward with this conversion of the property with the understanding that the easement be relocated off of the town property?
That would be the motion. There's a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, before we make the motion and take a vote, I have a couple of questions through you to the planning office. First, I may have misread the application. What is the size? I thought it was 1.25 acres. Is that the size of the parcel that we're talking about reclassing?
Yes, it is. It's a portion of the property.
And so then my following question is, that 1.25 acres, can you show me on the map where that 1.25 acres is? And then that would be the parcel or project area for the solar project? Just the 1.25 acres? I know that's beyond our purview. I'm just trying to understand the whole project here.
Yeah, let me get it up on the screen again and show you.
Okay.
The 1.25 acres is in here between the cranberry bogs. It's this upland area through here.
Okay. And
this is the access easement that comes across and comes from Charge Pond Road.
I understood. So it's the 1.25 acres, that little finger that sticks out. And it's very hard to see here. Would that be less than 250 kW?
Yes, it would be.
Okay, so the section 590 would not kick in, although the setbacks would. It's going to be hard to fit a solar project in there with the setbacks.
Well, what it is it's a adjunct to one of the existing solar projects or one of the proposed solar projects that you have before you.
So they would be attaching that to one of those projects?
Yes, they would.
And okay, I've got to think about what that process is. The next question I have is, what zoning law applies to that section? If we reclass it today, that would mean that they have to deal with the current zoning bylaw?
You're not reclassifying it, but yes, it would have to apply to the current zoning bylaw.
Well, okay, we're not if it were reclassified by the Board of Selectmen, I'll clarify. So that would be then subject to the zoning bylaw as of June 12th, whatever zoning bylaws there were, June 12th, 2021.
That's right. And the selectmen don't reclassify it either. All they're doing is saying whether or not they want to buy the land.
Oh, buy it. Okay.
And keep it in the use that it is now, or allow them to change its use and sell off the property.
Ken, is there tax implications from the reclass?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Since it would be zoned, it would be used for commercial use instead of agricultural use, for commercial solar, it'd be taxed according to the pilot that's existing for the property, or a new assessment that's put on the property as a commercial use, and the personal property that exists because of the solar field that's built there.
So continuing my line of questioning, which solar project is this going to be joined to?
I don't know.
Oh,
Can I weigh in here a little bit, Carl? The CPC was presented with this last week as a first right of refusal project. We voted against it, but we were told this is for personal use by the landowner, not to be tied into anything else. That's what was proposed to us. It was not going to be tied into the grid.
okay. So that's different zoning bylaws if it's not being joined into some other project.
Well, if you read the paperwork that came with it, it did say.
I tried.
It did say that the intent was to supply energy to the Cranberry operations.
Right.
And
Okay.
But it didn't say the Cranberry operations would be using 100% of the power. So there is some power that's going to go back out to the grid. That's the way I read it.
That was not presented to the CBC.
Yeah.
It was not going into the grid. It was for their use only.
Let's see here.
I'm confused because I'm on two committees and I'm hearing a little different story.
And you're surprised by that?
Yeah, here it is right here. SureCran will be the owner of the solar facility and will use a portion of the electricity produced to offset its own electrical usage. So it does intend to sell some energy back to the grid based on the way it's worded. But I would think that would those subjects come up when they come to the planning board for the approval for the solar farm?
If this is less than 250 kW and it's ground mounted, It's as of right. Is that correct, Ken? Am I remembering myself correctly?
You're quite correct, Carl.
As long as it's not joined to another project, that would confuse me. But if all the other conditions, it's still going to have to meet setbacks and all those other conditions, but this would be as of right, an as of right project for the property owner.
Yep. So it'd be, I guess it wouldn't be any different than putting panels on your roof and selling what you don't use back to the grid, just on a slightly bigger scale.
Or if you wanted to put them on your front yard, which you can do.
Right. Yep. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I understand now the solar aspect and the use of the property. We'll see how it evolves. So now I'm okay with, back to your motion, Mr. Chairman. All we're doing is making a recommendation for or against to the selectmen for right of first refusal.
Correct.
Can someone explain to me where the first right of refusal is coming in here? I understand that they want to take it out of agricultural use and put it into commercial use. But where does the first right of refusal come in?
I think
that comes in with the 61A agreement that's made between the town and the property owner.
So there's no question of the town purchasing the property.
The town can purchase the property, yes.
In lieu
Right
of,
of refusal.
yeah.
I think they're, if I understand, their request to convert it out of 61A triggers the town's right of first refusal. It just automatically happens with that request.
Is that in question at all, whether the town would purchase it?
Well, that's what is before you as a question.
I thought the question was whether it could be converted for their use. Nothing about a purchase.
No, the deal is under 61, chapter 61 is that they get a classification, an assessment of the property at something less than its full market value.
Yep.
So they can pay the lower taxes over the
Right.
time that they have that in place.
Right.
If they should come around to changing the use of the property and want to get out of that assessment, then they have to allow that the town could purchase the property to maintain it, to keep it in that use.
Okay. But that's not a something that's being entertained.
Well, that is what's before you, but what we're saying is that that's not of value to the town. I don't think at this point.
So,
Mr. Chair, through you, just for information, the CPC voted against this and has no use for it and would not move forward with any project that had to do with this.
okay, thank you.
Just so you know, there would never be any attached money to it from CPC. They would see no benefit to the town to purchase the
Right.
property.
Okay. So basically, again, Ken, just to reiterate, we're just weighing in with our opinion to the Board of Selectmen as to whether we think they should exercise their right of first refusal, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Having said that, I would entertain a motion to suggest to the Board of Selectmen that the town of Wareham do not exercise their right of first refusal for the Shurcran services located just off of Charge Pond Road.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Corbett, seconded by Mr. Schultz. Mr. Schultz?
I vote in favor of the motion, which is to not recommend exercising right of first refusal.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying. Mr. Corbett?
Aye.
Ms. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste?
I think we should buy it. Aye.
Michael, no.
I'm assuming you were being facetious, correct? Okay. And the chair votes aye, so 5-0-0, not to exercise our first right.
So what do we need to do? Do we need to send a letter to the selectmen?
That's right. I'll write a letter to the selectmen with that finding of the board.
Awesome. Thank you. Number 4 on the preliminary business, schedule hearings for zoning bylaws proposed for Springtown meeting. Ken, I'm assuming you have a thought on this?
Yeah, I think March 28th is the time when we should hold a public hearing on the, and what you can do is you can bring forward any zoning articles that, even if you don't put them on the warrant, we could advertise them at this point and leave it as an option. So I would say the solar bylaw and Article 15, or at least 2 of the bylaws that should be moving forward into public hearing.
Okay. So entertain a motion to put the zoning bylaws proposed by Ken for the town meeting on the planning board agenda for March 28th.
So that would be Article 15, Section 590, Article 3, and Article 16. Is that what you're proposing, Ken?
Yes. We could put other articles in there as well too, just to give them a placeholder as well.
Is there any, Article 14 you were working on, right?
Right.
So does it make sense to put all of those in as a placeholder, or are we just going to muddy the waters and be scrambling at the end to get all of the hearings and input and such done before the deadline for town meeting?
No, I think you can play this out in any number of ways, and getting them on the public hearing just allows you to go through the process and gives you an opportunity to use them. It doesn't require that you use them or not.
Okay. Okay, so I'll restate my request for a motion to add Article 15, 3, 16, and 14 to the planning board agenda for the meeting of March 28th.
And Section 590.
And Section
Article
5. Article 5, yeah, okay. Do I have a motion?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I'm not
Yes,
sure how
sir.
you're going to handle this, but you have hands up. Are we going to we're going to have conversations outside the board on each article? Are we going to have public comment? And it's your board now, we need to make.
Well, as I understand this, all we're doing is voting on getting them on a town meeting. I mean, on a planning board agenda. It doesn't seem to me that tonight is the appropriate time to start debating whether or not we do it. I mean, that seems to be under our purview, doesn't it?
I agree. All we're doing is creating a notice of public hearing.
Right.
And Ken says we can adjust the agenda as we move forward. We're not creating any obligations other than we're doing a notice of public hearing on zoning articles.
Yeah. Okay.
I
March
think-
28th. Ken, March 28th is going to give us enough time. We're not going to be scrambling. I don't want Madam Moderator mad at us.
Well, the problem is it'll be for the special town meeting, unless they get on the warrant tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So again, we go back to all we're doing is voting on bringing these on and adding them to the agenda for the March 28th planning board meeting.
And then we have to publish the notice of public hearing in the twice. That gives us time to do that.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. So let's try this one more time. So I'd entertain a motion to vote to add Article 15, Section 590, Article 3, Article 16, and Article 14 to the agenda of the planning board meeting for March 28, 2022.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Baptiste. Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Corbett, I didn't hear him. Did he respond?
Don't see him.
I'll say, I think we lost him. I know he said he was having problems with his PC tonight. We'll give him a half a second to see if he can reconnect. I think Charlie sabotaged him. He pulled the plug.
Not me. I wouldn't do that to Sam.
We, for this, we just need a simple majority, right, Ken?
That's right. Just a simple majority is all you need.
Okay, so I'll apologize to Sam later. So Mr. Schultz voted aye. Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So there'd be 401 with Sam involuntarily abstaining. Continued public hearings. I'm sorry?
He's coming back in now.
He's in now, so if you want to update him.
Sam, are you back with us?
I think he's
Doesn't
muted.
sound good.
Mike, I'm back. Just as I asked my
Oh, there
question,
you
my
are.
computer went dark.
Hmm.
I lost about 7-8 minutes.
Oh, boy.
what-
So
Mr.
we
King, why don't you
look-
just move forward with the vote as is? Or you want to go back and review it all,
Yeah,
Sam?
No, yeah, no, I'm fine with the vote as it is. We have a simple majority. And it's not a life or death subject. It's pretty straightforward stuff.
Mr. Chair, can I get a
Continued public
motion?
hearings.
Sam had a
sorry,
question, I
Sam?
think.
I'd just like to hear the motion, please.
Yeah, the motion was to add Article 15, Section 590, Article 3, Article 16, and Article 14 to the planning board agenda for the meeting for March 28th.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. 31-21, site plan review, LSC Hydra LLC, 364448 North Carver Road, Wareham, Mass, map 104, lot 1046, VB and VC, ground-mounted solar energy generation facility. Do we have someone here to speak for the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering, and Dan Watson is also in the meeting for the applicant.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. I would like to start. I reviewed the new screening plan that you submitted. I like it. Thank you for taking our concerns to heart. Looks like you really doubled up pretty nicely on all of the plantings. Sally, the white spruce, do you think that that's an appropriate choice for that area?
White spruce is a good species, yes.
Awesome. I had one point of concern as I was reading through the documentation, and that is the decommissioning expense chart. For the life of me, I can't figure out how you can find somebody, just a simple piece of it, $4 per panel to take those panels off of those stands. You know, you look at somebody that's working for less than minimum wage at that rate, and I'm just curious how you're arriving at these numbers. It just doesn't add up for me.
Mr. Chairman, you were broken up quite a bit on that, but Dan, I believe he's questioning the labor rate used for the decommissioning plan. We did submit a revised decommissioning plan, which, you know, we had a substantial reduction in the number of panels. But Dan, you're muted, but I don't know if you could just touch on the labor rate used. I think it is.
Well, I think my concern is it almost looks like you're using an anticipated salvage value to offset the cost of taking this thing apart. And I was just curious if you are, how you are arriving at that number.
No, we've removed the any salvage value from the calculation. Obviously, it's difficult at this time to, you know, have a direct quote from someone to remove a system like this that is currently in existence. What we've done is we basically mostly did peer review of studies and tried to come in. I think we came in higher on a per module basis than any decommissioning plan that was previously proposed to the board and approved by the board. So, you know, I think we noted a couple other examples. And so that's really how we derive the number in terms of the rate. I think we use our standard Massachusetts rates for electricians and our mechanical labor. In that analysis, you know, I think, you know, you're looking at probably just under $10 an hour between the modules and the racking, $10 a module between the module and the racking itself. So, you know, you're probably looking at, I don't know, 10 to 20 modules an hour, I would imagine, can be removed by a crew of 2. So $50 an hour, just rough cuffing. But again, it's just very difficult at this time to directly get these numbers. And we have included a 5-year review. I think in 10, 15 years, when these projects a lot of them are coming offline, there will be much more documentation and companies that will be, you know, will be able to get us these numbers, and we'll look at them with the town and we'll come to an agreement. And we have an obligation in our plan to do that with the town.
Right.
And
I see where you did make the obligation to revisit the decommissioning plan, but I don't see any language states that if we are of the opinion that that plan is not viable, that you're obligated to come up with a more realistic plan. Unless I overlooked it, I really didn't see that kind of language in there. And I'll be honest with you, at $10 to pull a panel off of the pole and then take the pole out of the ground, I don't know who your contractor is, but I want his name because he works dirt cheap. I just don't see it. You know, that's 3,300 panels for 90 grand just doesn't seem like enough money.
Mr. Chairman, then perhaps in the COA, if we don't want him to rewrite the plan, we clarify that the right to review and renegotiate every 5 years. I believe that was the intent, but if we need to be more clear, you know, reviewing every 5 years without being able to change anything seems kind of silly.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. The other thing that I didn't notice, again, and I apologize if I overlooked it, is there an inflation escalator, or are these $20 supposed to be worth the same amount of money 5 years from now?
The bylaw requires an inflation escalator. I don't remember if I saw it or not.
Yeah, I didn't, but I could have overlooked it.
It
But
seems,
that was, I mean, that was for the board. That was my comments and concerns on it.
So, Mr. Chairman, through you to the applicant, I don't have the decommissioning plan in front of me. I thought it was well written, but I may have missed. Was there an inflation number added to the plan?
There was a 25% adjustment as required by the town.
Okay, I'll go back and read the bylaw. I thought there was also a requirement for a 2% inflation calculation.
Which right now, a 2% inflation estimate would be very generous on that part.
well, it would seem that that would be a significant part of the 5-year review and the 5-year adjustment for inflation, that it wouldn't be something that you would want to do annually if you have a 5-year review.
Agreed. I think as long as we write it so that the town has a position.
1
I don't
moment.
want to say position of power. I'm sorry?
My computer talked to me.
Missed that. Oh, okay. As long as we wrote something in the decommissioning plan that gives the town some backbone to address any shortfalls that we feel are starting to appear as time goes on and costs go up and inflation either rises or falls, so that we're not sitting on our hands 5 years from now stating a concern that we can't address. That would be my only concern or suggestion. So if we could write that, would we write that to into the COA? Is that how we would approach that, Ken?
I can answer real quick and then Ken can, but what we can do is in the current decision that's already, I would say pretty much completed besides this, what you want to add, this modification. It already notes the decommissioning plan and the conditions. So after you note it in that same condition, you could write, some sort of language that notes what you're trying to say, but that would be my suggestion.
Okay, yeah, as long as it's noted somewhere so that we have some teeth in 5 years to address this and not just not be able to deal. Because again, for me, $95,000 25 years from now doesn't add up to a whole lot of money, or even with the 25%, whatever it comes up to.
Yeah, in reality, it's a number that's
$118,000.
only good for 5 years, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah, as
Chairman,
long as everybody understands. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I went back to the bylaw and it says the financial surety just needs to include a mechanism for adjusting for inflation, which to Mr. Rogers' point, that 5-year review, as long as we agree that we can adjust at that point for inflation and other better known costs. I think we're covered.
Okay. Okay.
And I think Mr. Rogers agreed to that.
If 5 years. Yeah. Okay. So if in 5 years from now, if we say, all right, we're looking at the decommissioning expenses and we see some concerns that it's going to come up short, and we would like to see the bond raised by another $25,000 or $50,000, whatever the case might be, and the applicant says, no, I'm not going to do it. Where does that leave us? Because right at that point, the solar farm is up and running, and they're not asking for permission to do anything at that point.
Right. So we would just like to be treated like every other approved solar project. And so there should be, soon in the near future, there should be a consistency in the town's decision on setting the surety amount. And so as long as everyone is being treated equally based on the size of the facility, then there should be no disagreement.
Well, I don't think there would be a disagreement, but, looking back at the previous solar projects that I've been involved in, I've always had a problem with the decommissioning expenses. And we're asked to work off the numbers that you supply. And your opinion is that you can find somebody to take a solar module off a pole for $4. And my opinion is you can. So,
but the surety
where
is
does
in the
that leave
event. The surety is in the event that the solar company is not the one taking the panels
Correct.
out. Right.
No,
And
I
so-
understand. I understand that, Bob. But if 25 years from now, we've got $118,000 set aside, and the reality is it costs $250,000, it's not the solar company that's on the hook for the extra money, it's the town. And that's what I'm trying to protect us against is that, we set ourselves up for a shortcoming 20 years from now. It's the part that I want to make sure that we don't screw that up.
Then my suggestion would be that you would make every single solar company use the wage rates that the town would have to pay in the event that they had to manage the removal of the facility.
Which would be considerably higher than these.
Mike, could I interject here?
Yeah, absolutely.
What Mr. Rogers just said is what I was going to suggest to you, that you could put into the conditions of approval that the purpose of having a higher amount is that the town would have to pay prevailing wages. And those wage rates are set by the state for the location where the property is located. So in the event that the town had to do it and you had to pay the prevailing wage rates, each time you go through a 5-year review, you could request a copy of what the prevailing wage rates are from the state, and you could base your decision as to whether the amount is sufficient or not. That's in addition to whatever value you might place on inflation. Yeah. So I think if it's tied to the fact that the town would be required, if it needed to go out to contract to do something, it would have to pay prevailing wages. And whatever the prevailing wages are at the time of your review, that's what you would apply.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may add, when Dan walked you through the time it took to remove a panel and basically came up with $50 an hour for a laborer, that, if it took 10, but that's the bottom line, basically, that, the town needs to review the pricing versus the wage rates.
Well, and if I may add, something that I have seen done before is a town, we would put a 5-year bond up and the town would condition that they sign the bond, right? So the town is a signatory to that bond because they're named in it. And then in 5 years, we have to come, or 4.5 years really, before that, we have to come with a new proposal and a new price. And the town can say, no, we're not signing that. And then we're in violation of the terms of our, planning board approval. At that point, the town can do what they would do if any developer, broke their rules, put a lien on the property, whatever you would do. But you would have that ability because you're the signatory. And if the time runs out on our bond and we don't have a new one in place, then, we're in violation, right? And you have that authority over us and you have that control. So that's one way to kind of establish some control that I think I've done before on another project. So just a thought.
Okay, thank you. I'd love to see, it's too bad that we're not a little further into these solar fields, because I'd love to see a field test where we had 10 panels in place and had a crew or two and say, all right, go take those 10 panels down, pull the pilings and stockpile it for transportation to a recycling facility and see for real how many panels can be taken down in an hour. Because I think the 6 panels per hour is extremely optimistic.
I mean, I could tell you, I've seen a 4-man crew install 50 panels in an hour. And so if they can install them, I imagine they can remove them. But again, I've can't speculate. We're trying our best here to get an accurate quote. I think we've done that, and we're happy to put any condition in here that the planning board would require.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna beat it to death. I mean, I made my concerns known, and the fact that we have the ability to readdress this 5 years from now makes me feel a little better. So that's really all I had concerning this. Everything else, you guys have been great as far as taking everybody's input to heart and making it a good project. Is there anybody else on the board that has input as to this project?
I think it's a
No,
good
Mike,
project.
I'll be honest. I think this has probably been one of the better solar projects as far as working with the developer and their eagerness to do the right thing by the town, to make it as appetizing as possible for us.
Mr. Chair, I agree 100%.
Mr. Baptiste, do you have? Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you, sir.
I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, no, I really do think that you guys did a great job, and don't take me beating you up over the decommissioning to heart. I mean, I just wanted it out there that was what was on my mind.
Well, I have to say Dan Watson has been a big help in he's, to me, a big reason why we are where we are right now.
So this public hearing has not been closed, correct, Ken? Or Aaron?
That is correct. The public hearing is still open.
Okay, so having said that, is there anybody in attendance tonight who would like to weigh in on this project? And I don't see any hands unless I'm missing something. No, I don't see any hands. Okay.
You are good.
Having said that and hearing no input from the public, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on project 31-21 site plan review, LSC Hydra LLC, 364448 North Carver Road, Wareham, Mass. Map 104, lot 1046, VB and VC, ground mounted solar energy generation facility.
So moved.
Second.
Is Mr. Chairman, just 1 second before you
Yeah.
before you do that. It might be, I think it's either Sandy or Alan Slavin that has a hand up right now that wants to say something.
Oh,
It just
okay.
came up last minute.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you. It's Sandy. I couldn't find my hand raising quick enough. I just want you to know that Conservation Commission did approve this project at our last meeting. Can I know that is a criteria for your discussion?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think, Sandy, I think the Conservation Commission must be pretty happy with all their revisions, because they did take quite a bit of the proposed array out to make sure that the Conservation Commission were satisfied with the protection of the Weeweeantic.
Yes, they developed an unbelievable replanting plan for the area close to Weeweeantic. We were very pleased with that. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. I guess I have to read it again. So I entertain a motion for project 31-21 site plan review, LSC Hydra LLC, 364448 North Carver Road, Wareham, Mass. Map 104, lot 1046, VB and VC, ground mounted solar energy generation facility. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, 500 to close the public hearing. Having closed the hearing, I would further entertain a motion to approve 31-21 site plan review, LSC Hydra LLC.
Mr. Chairman, before we make the motion and vote, just to clarify, did we decide as part of all your discussion on our discussion on the decommissioning plan that we needed to add any teeth to the COA, or we think it's okay to confirm the ability to renegotiate?
Yeah, based on our discussion and the input from the developer on, he clarified that at the end of the 5 years.
Wait a minute.
Mike
you gotta
needs to
turn-
mute when he's on the phone.
Yeah. The clarification that in 4.5 years, when we do the review and they decide that they don't agree with our assessment, that they potentially forfeit the bond. I think that gives us a pretty good position of negotiation to come to an agreement.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that anywhere.
Well, we could certainly add that to the COA.
Yeah,
That was my question. That was sort of my question.
You can motion the approval with the conditions, with that condition as a modification.
Okay. And now, is that the only condition that we need to reference when we take our vote?
If there's not anything else, there's any concerns, in my opinion, I feel like we've gone through the decision pretty good in this project. I've worked with Bob Rogers a lot on it, and I've worked with the board as well and Ken, and I think it's ready to go. If you want to add that minor modification into part of the conditions, that can certainly just be added in tomorrow. If you just, in your motion, note that there will be a modification to the conditions, and the applicant seems pretty, like they want to work with us on this. So I think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And there's no intent to be penalize anybody. It's just we're all working in new ground here.
Right, exactly. And to be honest, at some point, I think we do have to consider coming up with a standard for decommissioning rates as far as per panel, per pylon, so that all of the applicants going forward know exactly what we're going to expect in the decommissioning plan as far as costs. Yeah, I think that's something that'll help us out in the future.
The revised section 590 is trying to bring clarity to that, but I don't think we'll get that far this time.
Yeah, it's okay. Progress, not perfection.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question, technical question? On the agenda, under this 3121, do we have to put on the agenda possible vote?
You don't have to do that. I just write that in to make sure everyone knows kind of where we're at with the project, but we don't have to write that in if you're going to vote on it or whatever you want to do with the project.
I asked the question only because other committees I serve on, they're pretty stiff on that being there.
Yeah, I haven't seen that with the two boards I work with, but Ken would probably know a little bit more than I would.
We can do that. We can do that from now on.
I agree.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so let me see if I can get this out right the first time so I don't have to read it the second time. I would entertain a motion to approve project 31-21 site plan review, LSC Hydra LLC, 364448 North Carver Road, Wareham, Mass. Map 104, lot 1046, VB and VC, ground-mounted solar energy generation facility with the stipulation. Well, I wanted to add before we got to that with the stipulation that we add to the COA our ability to renegotiate at the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year mark the decommissioning expenses with the developer.
So moved.
Oh, I
Second.
think he beat you, Sam. Motion by Mr. Corbett, seconded by Mr. Schultz. Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, 5-0-0. Congratulations, Bob. Good luck with
Thank
the
you all for your
project.
time and patience.
Well, thank you for your cooperation.
Good job, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
We've got for people here. So 36-21, modification to special permit site plan review, Bay Point Club LLC, Phase 4, 19 Bay Point Drive, map 9, lots 1004B, 1004A-1 through 7. New 8-unit townhouse buildings. Vote on parking space size and ADA requirements. Is there someone here from the applicant to speak to the project?
Yes, my name is Karen Beck. I'm with Principi Engineering.
Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
So what I read in Charlie's peer review letter for February 25 is that there still seems to be some confusion over the size of the parking lot, or the parking spaces, and their possible interference with the sidewalks. Is that correct, Charlie? Am I understanding that properly?
I don't know is that there's necessarily confusion. There are two things that we're dealing with. One is the size of the parking spaces, which is spelled out in Article 6 of the zoning bylaw with certain dimensions, and the waiver request from the applicant to reduce those dimensions. And the second one is whether or not there's a requirement to meet ADA requirements for accessibility. Those are the two issues.
And based on your letter, there is they have to meet the ADA compliance, and their position is they don't.
That's what was in their last response. In talking with the building inspector about this particular matter, he emphasized to me that it is a matter for the building department to enforce. And I think the only thing that, as I put in my letter, the only thing I had to say about it was that it doesn't make sense to me, not if it's a requirement, and he said that it was a requirement for multiple family dwellings that are over 3 units, that they be shown on the plan of the accessibility routes with appropriate handicap landing spots, handicap parking, etc., be in accordance with the ADA requirements. It only makes sense to do that at this stage, because if they're not done at this stage, and then the plans go to the building inspector for approval, and he picks up on it and says, no, you're not in compliance, you got to change the plan. Now they're at a point where they need to come back here. So why go through that exercise if it's going to be a requirement in the long run? Why not do it now, get it done and be over with it?
Yeah, I agree. Is there a reason why the applicant is kind of pushing back on these subjects?
I can't speak for them. I would leave it up to them to give you an explanation, I guess, Mike.
Okay.
And I would, thank you. I would like to be able to break up the two, as Charlie stated, it's two separate issues. One is the size of the parking spaces and the other is the ADA compliance. I believe that you had in your agenda that being able to vote on the size of the parking spaces, we're proposing 9 by 18. The current town standard is 9.5 by 19. We believe that traditionally across the state of Massachusetts and in Rhode Island, people use 9 by 18s satisfactorily all over the place. Reducing the size of the parking space width by 1/2 foot and reducing the length of the parking space by 1 foot still allows for the majority of vehicles that would be parking in these spaces to successfully park in these spaces. We believe, having had conversations with the planning board previously and Mr. Buckland, that it is within the purview of the planning board to be able to vote on the size of the parking spaces. It's really important to this project that we know, can we move forward with the parking spaces at 9 by 18? Or do we need to modify those parking spaces to 9.5 by 19? So that's a big issue as far as we're concerned. We believe that 9 by 18 is definitely adequate. And we would greatly appreciate getting a vote from the planning board tonight. Do we move forward with 9 by 18s, or do we need to revise the plans to 9.5 by 19?
Okay. I'm more than happy to bring that to a vote. I know where I stand on it. I'm not quite sure if there's other planning board members that would like to weigh in on that. From my position,
I know where I stand, Mr. King. Personally, taking that half a foot away makes it difficult for me to park my vehicles. Not that I have to park my vehicles over there, but would not be in favor of modifying the waiver or granting the waiver.
I feel the same way you do, Sam. I mean, Mr. Schultz.
Kyle.
You know,
from my point of
they act
view,
like everybody's driving compact cars, you know?
Yeah, well, I would agree. I actually was at a restaurant the other day, and I brought my tape measure with me, and I measured the parking spot, and it was 9.5 by 19. And even at that, I was very uncomfortable parking my truck where I parked it for fear of a door ding. You know, there's plenty of people out there that have no regard for other people's property. So I stuck it in the corner, you know, away from everybody. So at 9 by 18, there's no way I'd be able to park my truck in that. It wouldn't work. I mean, you could squeeze it in there, but then you'd need a can opener to get out of it if someone's parked next to you. So we can certainly bring it to a vote if you'd like. I have no problem with that.
It would be greatly appreciated because it does make a difference in the layout of the spaces for both the commercial development portion as well as these individual residential units.
Okay. Ken, are we allowed to break this up into two different votes?
Yes, you can. You can break it up any way you want to for this discussion. I just wanted to add to reinforce what Karen had said, that 9 by 18 is a very common size space for parking lots. As the cars have gotten smaller, that you see from Detroit or wherever else they're made around the country, the smaller size space has been very functional, except for those larger trucks that some people like to drive around in.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Well, as somebody who lives in the automobile world, I will point out that trucks and SUVs are the best-selling vehicles in the marketplace, and that small sedans are not the majority of vehicles sold in the United States. In fact, most of the larger car manufacturers are dropping sedans from their car lineup. So I'm not sure that I would, personally, I don't think I would take that argument as a reason to grant the waiver.
I would also point out the type of development that this is with townhouses. So we're not talking about, single family houses with lots of children and multiple vehicles. And it's more likely, quite frankly, that these are people who are downsizing. And so they're downsizing not only their living space, but also their vehicles.
Well, people open their doors wide open too. You got to take that in consideration.
Yeah, these are definitely standard parking sizes. This is not a compact space.
Okay, where this is still under public hearing, we need to open this to the public on this subject before we move forward with a vote?
That's up to you, that's up to you, to how you want the public to interact.
Okay, well, I mean, I think as far as the size of the parking space in a yet-to-be-built building, I don't see where it impacts anybody at present, so I'm not 100% sure that public input on this particular subject really means anything. So as long as I'm not going to completely irritate somebody, I think I would pass on public input on this unless the board thinks otherwise.
Mr. Chairman, could I interject something here?
Absolutely.
From day one, I've had a concern over whether or not the planning board even had the authority to waive it. If it does, it's the only zoning district in the town of Wareham where the planning board could waive the size of parking spaces, because it's required in the parking bylaw to be 9.5 by 19. And in those other districts, if someone came to you with a request to reduce those parking spaces, it's my opinion that you would have to go through a zoning variance to do that. Besides that, when it talks about being able to adjust dimensions in the conference recreational district, it's my opinion that they're talking about the dimensional requirements for setback, for lot size, and for density. It has nothing to do with picking on parking spaces. So to make, it's just my opinion, but to make it that you can do it in the conference recreational district, when the impact was to be that the conference recreational district was to have multiple uses in it, not just residential uses, but multiple uses. Why you would single that out in the bylaw and say it's okay to do it there, but no other place except for a variance, strikes me as kind of unusual. And it just doesn't make any sense. So whether it's a standard space according to the some other states or some other jurisdiction, I don't think really makes any difference. It's more, in my opinion, whether or not the board has the authority to do it. If you see that you do, then obviously you're free to make that choice and make that vote, whichever you see. That's just my opinion as to why I was coming from at it in the way that I did.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Charlie. Having no one from the public weighing in, I would entertain a motion to vote on 36-21 modification to special permit site plan review, Bay Point Club LLC Phase 4, 19 Bay Point Drive, Map 9, lots 1004B and 1004A1 through 7, new 8-unit townhouse buildings. Take a vote on the request to reduce the parking lot size from 9.5 by 19 to 9 by 18. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. So this would be
what's the motion, Mr. Chairman?
The motion would be to accept the applicant's request to reduce the size of the parking from 9.5 by 19 to 9 by 18.
So a nay vote would say we're not going to grant the waiver.
Correct. Do you want me to reword it a little differently, or?
No, as long as we all
Confusing?
understand what we're voting on.
Yep, okay. So Mr. Schultz,
I am voting nay, which says I do not want to grant the waiver.
correct. Mr. Corbett,
Nay.
Ms. Gleason,
Nay.
Mr. Baptiste,
Nay.
and Mr. King votes nay. So that would be 050. The board does not grant the waiver request for the parking lot size.
That is greatly appreciated that we know the board's stance on that particular issue so that we can then move forward with revising the plans to accommodate that size instead.
very
Quite
good.
frankly, because we need to make some changes related to that, and the fact that we also got Mr. Rowley's comments on Friday, we haven't had much of a chance to review those comments in detail. So at this point, we've also made a request with the state to get a more definitive answer on the ADA accessibility on that state law. So at this point, quite frankly, now that we've got an idea of the parking lot, parking space size, we'd like to be able to continue the hearing so that we can make changes to the plans and resubmit.
Okay, and do you have a date that you have in mind for the continuance?
What would be the next meeting?
14th,
Good question.
March
The
14th.
14th, it is, Carl, isn't that the meeting that we've got pretty well clogged up with solar zoning freezes?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, that is the next meeting. I wasn't commenting whether there was time on the agenda. That Aaron would have to kind of guide us there.
I would say that the 14th, the solar projects definitive solar plans you're dealing with may not go as long as you think, because they're all pretty similar, the ones you have that meeting. So I think you could do it on the 14th. I would maybe caution going to the 28th, because you are doing the public hearing on the zoning articles on the March 28th. So I think you could do it on the 14th, but you could push
Okay.
the 28th if you'd like to.
As long as you think that we've got time on the agenda. Ms. Beck, is the 14th, is that acceptable?
Yes.
Does that work for you? Okay, so I would make a motion to continue the public hearing for 36-21 modification to special permit site plan review 8 Point Club LLC to the planning board agenda for March 14th.
Mr. Chairman, before we take a vote, a question. So the only two items that we were preparing to discuss tonight were those two. I mean, it's been a long time since we talked to this applicant, and I have a long list of questions that haven't been answered. So we're not going to be able to discuss any of that tonight.
That wasn't really on the agenda as a discussion point. To be honest, I'm not sure, is the applicant even prepared to address questions outside of the two that you
that was my
requested to be on the
question.
agenda?
That was my question. I read the agenda. I'm frustrated that this project keeps getting continued and continued and continued, and we can't address open questions. But that's my comment. That's my comment. The motion was made. I'm okay.
Okay.
If Ms. Beck is the only person.
Go through the motion.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kyle, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think once we get through the motion to continue the public hearing, I've got a suggestion that addresses what you're talking about. Maybe we can I'll bring that up afterwards.
Sure.
Okay. So do I have a motion to continue this public hearing on 36-21 to March 14th?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Corbett, seconded by Mr. Schultz. Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
and chair vote aye, 5-0-0. Okay. To your point, Kyle, what I was going to suggest is I too have quite a list of questions that I'd like to present to the applicant and maybe get some input on. Is it possible, Ken, that we can put together a list of inquiries from the board and send it to the applicant for response outside of the meeting?
I think that'd be a great idea. You send it to staff and we'll transport it to the applicant and let them respond.
Yeah, I think that'll put us in a much better position come the next meeting to actually make some progress. because Carl's right. It's been just a series of back and forth and continuances. And, you know, all we're doing is digging ruts in the mud here.
Would be greatly
you.
appreciated to have those comments in writing. We've been dealing with Mr. Rowley and his comments back and forth, and that's really what has, you know, resulted in these continuances. But if we could get the comments from the board also in writing, that would make sure that we had a chance to review them in detail and give thoughtful answers in response.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think that would make a better use of everybody's time if we do it. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, 38-21 definitive subdivision plan, 69 Great Neck Road, David Andre, map 41, lots 1019 through 6. Oh, 1019, 6-lot subdivision. Is there somebody here for the applicant?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my name's Ken Motter. I'm project manager at Field Engineering. I believe Dave should be on.
Is Dave with
I
us?
see his name over there, but I think he's muted right now. Okay, I know it's been a while since we've looked at this project with you people. I believe our last meeting was November or so. Since then, we have received the comments from Charlie. We've responded to the comments. We're pretty much you know, closing the gap on the technical issues. We have reached out to both the water department and the fire department, and we have positive letters in the package there that I sent in my response to Charlie's comments. Today we've had the opportunity to close the loop with Dave. He's a tough guy. He's a tough guy to tie down over there at the maintenance department. But he's had a chance to review the plans. He has some minor plan edits that needs to be done. So I think what I'd like to do tonight is just now that we've all had a chance to really get our feet into this, is to entertain any discussion on any matters with the board members, and if time permitting, if we could get into the waiver requests that we currently have, which gets into a lot of the you know, the buffering that we're proposing and the plantings that we're proposing, and you know, things of that nature. We also submitted just recently draft copies of the various covenants that were going to be attached to the subdivision. One of them was the performance guarantee. That's pretty much the town. We used the town template on that with no modifications. But we do have a couple of additional covenants that we could get into discussion on that. One is the driveway covenant, driveway lantern covenant, and also the roof drain recharge system covenant for you know, for each of the lots. So at that juncture, I mean, I just open it up for discussion here.
Okay, Charlie, I always defer to you because you're the expert. Is there anything past your peer review and their response that gives you pause?
For the most part, I think we're in pretty good shape. I do have a couple of questions though, because Ken and I talked about this by phone a number of days ago. And my main concern with respect to Great Neck Road, I don't see anything in the email, Ken, where you spoke with David, that you discussed the catch basins out in Great Neck Road. And if you'll recall, I had a concern that the 100-year storm runoff was going to Great Neck Road, and that I wanted to be sure that those basins could handle that flow without overtopping and causing flooding. Did you have any discussion with David about that?
We did. We did talk about that at length. One of the things I mentioned to Dave, that in our analysis, that we're actually reducing the, you know, the volume of water going in, and also the rate. but there is obviously, there is still an overflow in a 100-year storm as what's happening there now. He felt that, I mean, he looked at the basin and he said, well, I think you've got a large enough basin over there. That will certainly handle it. And I went into telling him about, the two stages that we have in the stormwater management system between the upper recharge basins and then the lower basin. That's just to paraphrase what we had talked about, and I reiterated that in the email that I sent over to Ken. That he had no issues with the drainage out on the road.
The only other thing I had, Mr. Chairman, had to do with the stormwater plan. It's in the stormwater calculation booklet that was submitted to the board for review. And part of the stormwater calculation includes a portion of each lot having been cleared and made into, we'll call lawn area, something other than a naturally vegetated area. Which is not a bad thing to do. Obviously, the runoff conditions from the naturally vegetated area, including the trees and the undergrowth and the duff and so forth, contains the water a little bit better or retains it back, whereas a lawn won't do that. The runoff curve numbers that you use for a lawn are different than what you would have for a natural cover area. So what I asked was if there was any chance that the applicant would consider a percentage of each lot to be left in its natural state, at least to the extent that it's shown on that stormwater management plan. Now that plan shows a heavy dashed line going around each building, and it probably was an arbitrary line that was drawn, and it really doesn't matter too much where that line goes. It's more a matter of the percentage of the total lot as to how much of that lot is actually contributing lawn runoff and how much of it is retained by the natural vegetation. So if each lot had a percentage of the total area maintained as natural cover, it would help to reduce the amount of stormwater that's coming down into the areas of the first lot and ultimately to the lot which contains the stormwater area that's down at Great Neck Road. And that's the way that the stormwater calculations were done. So if that changes to say all the lots are cleared for whatever reason and no natural vegetation is left, that will impact the net result of the stormwater. So I would think that it would be appropriate, and I don't necessarily suggest you have to hold to the line that's shown in the plan, but rather to make it a percentage of the total lot rather than just that line. And that way it would give the applicant an opportunity to adjust that line of clearing around his house and around the area to make it reasonable to use without sacrificing all of the vegetation. And that's the only other real comment that I have. And perhaps it would make a point with respect to Great Neck Road that if the board should decide that it wants to approve the plan, that it put in a condition that in the event that the catch basins in Great Neck Road are somehow overtopped by flooding that comes from this development, that is at the obligation of the owner to take care of that situation. If Mr. Bernard is satisfied with it, that's fine. But I think in order to protect the town's interest and make sure that we don't have puddling that takes place, especially this time of year, where you have first one day that it freezes, the next day that it rains, and you've got an excess of water out there that could become a safety hazard. So I think maybe there should be some condition of approval that in the event that it shows in the future that there's a problem there that could be attributed to this runoff, not some other condition within Great Neck Road, but attributed to this particular project, that the applicant be responsible for making sure that that's rectified.
Charlie, do you think that it would be the applicant or would it be the homeowners association? I'm assuming it's
Well, I'm
gonna
not
be
sure
an
that,
HOA.
I don't know whether there is an actual homeowners association. That doesn't necessarily occur in every subdivision where you have single-family lots.
Yeah.
So unless they're actually proposing a homeowners association where each individual owner contributes a percentage into that association for maintenance, it will be an obligation of each and every homeowner in that development.
So with the absence of an HOA, then if the problem is determined that it's from the neighborhood and it's $20,000 to correct the problem, it's $20,000 divided by the 6 homeowners.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Because
And if
what
they elect-
happens is, in typical cases where a developer conveys a lot, if he does not retain specifically all of the right title and interest in the street, but simply grants the lot as shown on the plan, it means that the lot owner gets half of the street as a part of his ownership. So that makes each individual lot owner responsible for his portion of the street, and collectively what happens when it reaches Great Neck Road.
Right, okay. And obviously the town would be in a position that if it was a problem that resulted and certain lot owners decided that they either wouldn't or couldn't pay, that there would just be a tax lien on the property for the amount owed.
I don't know that I'm in a position to say yes or no on a tax lien, but certainly if it can be shown that the problem that exists in Great Neck Road is attributable directly to the runoff that's coming from that site, then they are responsible in some fashion. And I think would have to be expecting to take care of it. That's about all I can say to it. I don't think I want to get into the technical aspects of how it would be done.
Yeah.
It's probably something to check with town council on if anybody had a question.
Yeah, well, Mr. Chairman, through you to the planning office or through you to anyone who can answer, what is the town's history and ability to enforce these kinds of things? I don't want to see the town, I'm very concerned about the runoff and maintenance of catch basins when we build these subdivisions. And I don't want to see the town getting stuck with having to maintain these things.
Well, they don't have to maintain anything that's on the property, Mr. Schultz. It's up to the homeowners to take care of that. That's going to be their responsibility, whether it's a homeowners association or not. It's not up to the town to maintain anything that's in their private development.
I'm sorry to clarify my question. Thank you. I understood. If the homeowners don't do it, there's a danger. The town has to step in to address the danger on Great Neck Road. I want to know if we've been historically able to enforce these things on homeowners and subdivision street owners.
I think that's something that could only be addressed by perhaps the selectman's office and town council. I don't think that I have any particular expertise in that manner as to how it might be done. But if it has to be attributable directly to that particular development. I mean, it can't just be that you run out there and you say, oh, look, Great Neck Road's flooded. It must be coming from the development. You've got to be able to show that it is. But if it can be shown that it is actually attributable to that development, then I'm assuming that through the selectman's office, that there would be a mechanism by which that can be corrected.
I'm less confident than you are, but thank you. I understand your position. Thank you. I understand you're not giving legal advice. It's just a consideration that I have when I think about the project.
Well, it's no different here than it would be in any other project where something happens in a public street, and it can be shown that it's attributable to what's coming off the private development.
I understand.
You know, I can think of one in particular right now. I won't mention it by name, but it's a continuing thing.
For you, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
if I may.
Of course.
But if I may, getting back to the development of the lots and looking at how much, how much area is going to be converted from naturally wooded to, to lawn area. A couple of things to keep in mind here. I mean, we have fairly well-drained soils. We have deep water tables that are in excess of like 4 or 5 feet. So there's no really motivation to over clear these lots to the extent to provide, to accommodate the building sites or to accommodate like a raised septic systems where you have to bring in, who knows, 3-4 feet of fill and expand the horizontal footprint of what you need to clear. And the owners have made it clear to me that they're not interested in clear cutting these entire lots by any far stretch. I mean, that's a cost to them, obviously. They have to, that's more area that they have to clear. Their intention is to basically clear what is, what is necessary to accommodate the building sites. Now, obviously, any buyer that's on these lots is going to want, they're going to want a front yard area, which we've accounted for in the calculations. They're going to want, to some extent, a backyard area. But these lots are in excess of 30,000 square feet. Not to say that they couldn't, but it's all I'm saying is it's highly unlikely that anybody's going to want, a football field or in their backyard either. It's not. It would be very uncommon for that. If we're looking for a no discharge into the roadway, then we'd have to go back and look at the hydrology and make the system that we have in place, make the system larger. And that's something that I would need to come, to come back at. We're only right now, as it stands, we're mimicking what's currently happening there. And what the hydrology is telling us that's happening there is the water flows over this site and flows onto Great Neck Road. We're not changing the flow characteristics of what's there. We are changing it actually, but we're reducing it. And we can only go by the numbers and the speculation on the development of the lots and take that into account into the analysis. But if this is something that is going to go, be taken to another level as far as laying that responsibility on the homeowners, if in fact there is a problem, which I highly doubt based on all the calculations that I've done and what I've seen out there, then maybe we need to revisit the drainage system and to provide a zero runoff onto Great Neck Road. I'm not sure we could do that, but we could certainly look at that as an option.
I think, quite honestly, I think that's a great option, a great idea. To just try to look for something that will remove that possibility of an issue down the road for both the town and the homeowners.
Okay.
Mr. King, I need to be upfront with you about this too. I have discussed this with Mr. Mata. And in all fairness to him, they have used a fairly conservative infiltration rate in a soil which, based on my own experience, is a sandy soil in that area. A number of years ago, my office was involved in the project next door. So I have some experience in exploring the ground there. I know that it's very sandy. And what he is saying is probably true. As a matter of fact, with the infiltration rates that he used, he could have come in with a much higher infiltration rate according to stormwater regulation, and it would clearly show that there probably won't be any runoff going on to Great Neck Road. But he chose to keep it as he did, wanting to be sure that the rate wasn't so fast that all of a sudden he was getting water when he didn't anticipate it. So I respect what he's done. All I'm saying is that it was included in the calculations to limit the amount of area that was cleared from natural vegetation to go into lawn areas or something that had a slightly higher runoff calculation attached to it. And since it was a part of the calculation, it seems to me that it makes sense to make sure that that isn't exceeded in the future. If it were, then that would change the runoff perhaps. But I have to be honest about it, that his calculation was very conservative. And there is some flexibility, I think, in the amount of runoff that actually may get to the bottom of the hill. Having said that, remember, if you look at the topography of the site, it goes from a high point at the far end of the road down to a low point at Great Neck Road. So it's all pitched in that direction.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I'm a little bit concerned about it. And I'm not saying that there will be runoff to Great Neck Road, which will be a safety issue. But should there be, then I think there's an opportunity to maybe pull some of it back by restricting a little bit of the amount of clearing that could be done, but giving it as a percentage and not necessarily a hard and fast line the way that he showed it on the plan, because the plan is only one representation of where that line could have been.
Right.
So I
But
want to be honest about it, that I think he has been very conservative, and I respect Ken for doing that. So there may be some flexibility there, and you may never see the water over there, but I just don't want to take the chance in view of what's been presented to the board.
Right. Well, and the reality is, Charlie, is once those homes are built and under the ownership of private parties, there's nothing that's going to stop them from saying, hey, I've got 10,000 square feet of lawn, I want 20, and hiring someone to come out and cut trees and plant grass and change the whole makeup of the neighborhood. We'll never be able to control that.
I'm fully aware of all of that, and I don't think, however way you end up voting, it doesn't change the obligation on the part of the residents who live there to make sure that the runoff from their development does not in any way affect the safety in Great Neck Road. So no matter what gets done, whether some limits on clearing are done or whether they're not done, that responsibility will remain.
Yeah. Okay. So if we take a more conservative tact on this now, it's going to protect the future homeowners from a potential problem if it does result.
I wouldn't go so far as to say it protects the homeowners from any future action. I think it perhaps would reduce the impact. I don't think we can, as you've already suggested, that they have a right to clear about anything they want. So even if you put that into there and something happens, I don't know that we've guaranteed that they've got full protection from something that might happen on Great Neck Road. So just that the responsibility still is there if something should happen.
Okay. All right. So would you suggest then that we ask the applicant to come back with a slightly more aggressive water control proposal?
I think I am comfortable with what they have shown. You have a report from Dave Bernard who says that he is happy with the stormwater management system that's been shown on the plan. He's accepted that. So I don't think that we necessarily need to go that route.
Okay.
But if the board were to see fit to put some sort of a percentage of clearing on there, I think it would be helpful, given the fact that the calculations for stormwater are based on that.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any input on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'll wait till.
Go ahead, Carl.
No, I'll wait. Go ahead. I already had a question.
To that point, is that something you put in a deed, Charlie?
Yes, I think you could. It could be a requirement that the homeowner acknowledges that they're responsible for the upkeep of the drainage and system, and that it should not unduly impact the safety in Great Neck Road.
Thank you.
Kyle?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, probably for the applicant. Uh, I know this is a subdivision plan, so we're not dependent on Concom. I do believe you've been discussing this with Concom, and I believe they had some concerns about our runoff as well. Can the applicant speak to that?
For you, Mr. Chairman, yeah, we have filed an application with Concom, and in discussions with Dave Fischette, he's in a holding pattern right now until we have a consensus on the drainage system right now. He's waiting for a final final report from Charlie. I got a meeting with them on Wednesday. I'll probably continue that meeting until Charlie and I work out something in terms of this whole drainage concept here. But that is in the works.
Okay, thank you. So that you're continuing discussions with them. And I know that's
yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm going to, yeah, because there's a few things that I can look at on my end that in hearing what Charlie's saying about the percentage and looking at some options in improving the capacity or expanding the capacity of that system so that we have a zero net increase. So it might be a combination of the two. I'll need to run some numbers on that, and Charlie, I'll get back to you on that, whatever direction we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one more question, and it's probably to the planning office. On Mr. Menard's response, I note that he made a comment. Normally in our subdivision plan, we have streetlights at the major intersections. And this is the first time I remember him making a comment that he will not be responsible for that streetlight. I don't know what that means or what the implication of that. I know what it means, but I don't know what the implication is or the consequence of that is.
Well, if I'm not wrong, I think Ken can probably answer this. One of the waivers you're requesting is from street poles. Is that correct? From street lights?
No, the waiver request as it stands right now is just to allow the driveway lanterns, which we've submitted in the covenant. But we initially were going to we were going to put a mast over on the there's a light pole that's along the front of lot 1. And we're going to work that out with Eversource. And in my discussion with Dave, he said exactly that. He says, well, yeah, he would have no problem with the light, but I'm not paying for it. So I guess my question to the board would be, this really gets down to how is it metered and how is it maintained, if it has to be maintained by the association. If we chose to go that route, one of the things that I notice is looking at the site distances out there and everything. Frankly, I don't see a warrant that would warrant a street light in that area. We simply had that on the plan only to comply with the letter of the regulations. You do have a street light that's out at the intersection of Great Neck Road and Memory Lane. That's about 200 feet west of the existing driveway on the site. The next street light that you have moving in an eastward direction is just past Cranberry Lane, about 160 feet east of Cranberry Lane. So it's a question of whether the question now is, does the board feel the need for a street light at that particular location? And if so, if you could give us some guidance as far as like how that is accomplished through the homeowners association. I mean, if somebody had to change the street light, is that something that the power company does and then is reimbursed by the association, or does the association have to have their own electrician file a permit to go, to access the pole to change the street light? I don't know if there's any, does the town have any similar situations around town that we can model that?
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not an expert on this, but if I'm not mistaken, the town is the one that replaces the lamps when they burn out. And the streetlights are billed as a per light item, whether it's burning or not. They pay X amount of dollars per month or per year. I'm not quite sure from my own perspective if a street light on a pole is really required. I know I lived in a small subdivision off of Tohonet Pond, Tohonet Road, Farm and Market Road. And they, that's a pretty well-traveled road. It's busy. And they just had a very nice decorative wooden pole with a sign introducing you to the neighborhood with a decent candle power lamp at the top of it to illuminate the end of the road where it intersects with Farm to Market. That might be a more economical and simpler way to accomplish lighting the entrance subdivision.
So that is,
that's just
that is not what I was looking for, Mr. Chairman. I drive Great Neck Road in the dark. It's a scary place after dark. So I was thinking that having a light for people entering at that intersection would be a benefit and a safety benefit. I'll go out and drive it again and note what I think at that intersection. But my question was going towards having a true street light at the intersection. So not just.
I have a longtime friend who is in that industry and works for NSTAR, National Grid, and all those folks for about 30 years, 35 years. I can ask him what the politics are about getting a light added, because I do believe it takes an act of Congress to get one of those things up.
That would be helpful. As an alternate to that, and I'll just throw this out. We could do a low intensity, lantern, similar to what we're proposing on the interior lots on that lot 1. So we have right now under the draft covenant, they would be required to do like one driveway lantern per lot. On lot 1, we could require 2 and have one placed down at the intersection just to define the intersection. I mean, it's certainly not going to be, it's not going to illuminate the entire intersection. But you have Cranberry Lane that doesn't have a light at the intersection over there either. So.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't know.
I think you hit it on the head. It defines the entrance to the subdivision, and it just gives it some presence while you're on that road. But I'll inquire about what the politics are of adding a street light to a pole. But if I remember my conversations with him, it's trying at best.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to that. I mean, if we try to put the mast down on the pole, it's like, well, it's I don't know which utility company owns that pole, whether it's EverSource, Verizon, or whatever. You'd have to get permission from them to mount it on the pole, and they may not want it on the pole, so it may not be an attainable standard if they say, well, no, we don't want the light on the pole. It would have to be metered, and it would have to be a private meter that's I'm not sure how that would work, and that's why I asked if there's a similar situation that you people have around town that we could model. It seems like this is new ground here.
Okay. All right. Well, we can definitely do some homework. Come back to that, because it sounds like you've got some homework to do on the groundwater control with Charlie. So when we reconvene, I can have some input from the electrical company side of it, and then hopefully that'll help clarify,
Okay.
what path we should take.
Yeah.
Ken, is
If
the
it could-
location for the road identified out there by any survey work? Where say the
Yeah.
center line of the road's going to be, is that somehow marked to where if somebody like Carl was driving by, he could know when he was opposite that entrance, proposed entrance?
Yeah, it was staked out a while back when we had first filed with the Conservation Commission. They had
Okay.
asked for the center line out there. I could go out there and see if the beam poles are all still out there. If not, we can refresh them.
Yeah, just if you could, that would give somebody, if they wanted to check what it was like driving by there, they'd see, okay, this is where the road would be. And if it's as
Yeah.
dark as what Carl is a concern about, at least you'd know what you were approaching. That would be helpful, I think, to the board if they wanted to see it.
Yeah, yeah. It should. Yeah, we staked out the baseline all the way up, but
Okay,
I'll double check and see if the flag. We got beam poles and flagging out there. I'll check.
all right.
Okay. Any other input from the board before I invite the public to weigh in? Okay, hearing none. Is there anybody from the public that would like to make comment on this project?
We have Sandy Slavin. Has her hand up.
Okay. Slater?
Thank you, Sandy Slavin. Yes, I'm on conservation and I have been watching the water build up on Great Neck. And about a month ago, somebody went out there and cleaned all the dirt and grass off of the stormwater drains, and we no longer have the puddles we used to have in that location. It doesn't help with water flow if the catch basins are covered. Something to consider. There are more and more insurance companies insisting that all trees be removed around homes because of tree damage in windstorms. So limiting or requiring certain amount of their property to be left with trees could be encountered to what the insurance company will demand of them to do. Regarding the water, I strongly recommend dry wells for all of the roof runoffs. And something else to consider is a stormwater retention basin near the bottom of the hill before it goes into Great Neck, to try to keep some of the runoff from the driveways and street. Just something to consider, but I know conservation is asking for more and more dry wells to ease the amount of runoff that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is
Yeah, I
there?
believe that the drainage basin that Ms. Slavin's referring to is already there in the site plan. Ken, do the roofs have their own dry wells?
Yes.
They do. Okay. So
Yes.
in terms of what you've calculated, you have not included the roof runoff in what
That's
goes
correct.
to the drainage system?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. That's helpful.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to weigh in? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to continue. Would you like the 14th as well, or do you need more time to prepare, Ken?
No. The 14th is fine. I mean, we really like to keep this process moving. I think I would like to get some direction on the covenant forms that we had sent you people regarding the driveway lanterns and the roof drain recharge systems.
I don't have any issue with the driveway lanterns. Again, I've lived in a neighborhood that had that exact covenant. And the lighting was sufficient that the neighborhood was safe, but the lanterns weren't abusive at night, interfered with folks either sleeping or enjoying the quiet of their house. Is the board have any concerns about the driveway lanterns in the covenant?
No, I think that's consistent directionally with what we have been discussing in other projects.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I like the idea of the driveway lanterns at the end of every driveway as opposed to street lighting. I think that, is just kind of brass and kind of takes away from the quietness of the neighborhood feel. And then the other one was the roof drainage. So this just goes back to having a dry well for each roof drain for the runoff.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we've already touched on that. I mean, Charlie brought that up. So I think it's a great idea having the dry wells for the roof. It keeps the properties cleaner, so you don't have a mess at the end of the downspouts. So I personally don't have any issue with either one of those covenants.
Okay.
Is there anybody on the board that has any concerns with those that Ken needs to know about? Okay, hearing none. Is there anything else, Ken, that we need to address for you before we move to continue this?
I'd just like to point out, I'd just like to point out a couple of things on the waiver letter, if we could get into some discussion on that. That the applicant has withdrawn the previous waiver regarding the street trees and has agreed to provide a minimum of like 2 trees per lot. And, the trees will be like 2.5-inch caliper, shall be planted. They'll be planted outside of the outside of the right of way, just so that it doesn't interfere with any of the public utilities or the sidewalks and everything. Now, since the regulations don't really specify, don't get into specifics as far as like spacing or anything like that. We just selected that. It was a random number. So, okay, 2 trees per lot to satisfy that requirement. Is that acceptable?
From my perspective, again, yes. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Again, I lived in a subdivision very similar to this, twice the size, and everything proposing mimics everything that they did. It was a piece project, and they had 2 red oaks at the front of a single lot. And that's what lined the street, and it made for, especially during leaf peeping season, it made for a gorgeous setting. So I think 2 trees is more than enough. I think any more than that, you're gonna, when they mature, you're gonna have overcrowding problems.
Exactly. No. And we've also met with 2 of the property owners that are on the easterly side of the property. And again, they reflected questions on the drainage, which we addressed. And we're also agreed to provide them a 20-foot no-touch buffer along the back of lots 4, 5, and 6. And the neighbors that we did talk to was Joyce Holster and Susan Nelson, and that came up at the meeting, and we've agreed to do that. In addition to, we've added on the resubmitted plans, we've added plantings around the detention basin that's in the front there. All right, where we could, obviously, because I mean we're right on the corner there, so it's not to restrict site distance as you're coming out of the subdivision there. We did the best we can with some low lying. We have some red oaks and white pines, which is the predominant species that are around that area, and some low-lying, I think it was a Japanese, Japanese something, I don't know. I don't recall. I'm not a plant guy, I apologize. Well, we got some low-lying shrubs in there, just to dress it up. I mean, these owners really, they see the value of this property, and it is a beautiful piece of property, and they want to make it look good. And they've gone, they've gone the extra mile here to try to keep within the, within the regulations. So, is there any questions at all on the second amended waiver request letter that we submitted?
Second amended, let me look at that. Second amended waiver. Okay, so the street light and tree plan which we discussed.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would recommend to you is that any of the shrubs and everything that are down near Great Neck Road and the intersection of the new street be kept to a maximum of 3 feet in height so that it does not obscure the sight distance coming out onto Great Neck Road.
Yeah.
Now, the location I have no problem with. I just want to make sure that those low plantings don't end up being bushes that really obscure your sight distance.
Right. Charlie, do you think that we could maybe ask the applicant for a landscaping plan with
I think he showed that. I think he showed the location. Yeah, I think he showed the location on his plan. So I think all it takes is just a condition of approval that the plantings out near the intersection should be no higher than 3 feet.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess that would be a simpler way to address it than asking for a landscaping plan. Yeah, because I do see the indication where they want to plant.
I think they're on his plan, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, they're on.
Right.
It's shown on sheet P1 of the plan set you have.
Okay. Wetlands. Intersection was been established. I don't have any other concerns. Is there anybody on the board that has any other concerns concerning the Second Amendment waiver? I think honestly, Ken, I think we're pretty close. I think if you can tighten up your stormwater control, and then we'll try to get the information that we need to address the street light at the entrance to the subdivision. I think at that point we'll be in good shape, when we meet at this meeting. All right, very good.
Mr.
With
Chairman,
that,
sorry, you have one hand up
I'm sorry.
from the public if you're going to take that.
Okay, I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is, Nancy McHale. Hi, Nancy, how are you?
I am well, thank you. Congratulations on your appointment to chair. But I do have a comment about the tree planting. I would make a suggestion that not all of the trees be of the same species and that they be native trees. They'll do better. And if you plant them all the same, they'll all be subject to the same pesticide or pests and diseases. So planting not a monoculture is a better idea for the environment. So I would just make that suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments before we move forward to continue this to the next meeting? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to continue the 38-21 definitive subdivision plan at 69 Great Neck Road, David Andrade, map 41, lot 1019, 6-lot subdivision, and place it on the agenda for the upcoming planning board meeting of March 14th.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Okay, I was waiting to give somebody else a chance to
Second.
second it, but I'll say, oh, go ahead.
Who's going to fight over it? Carl or Jane?
I just
Jane
seconded it.
beat me. Jane beat me.
Okay. So we have a motion by Sam Corbett, seconded by Jane Gleason. Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, 5-0-0. Thanks for coming, Ken.
Thank you.
Public comment on the master plan. Do we have any updates or new initiatives to talk about tonight? Okay, hearing none and seeing none. Planning board liaison updates. Kyle, anything new on the solar bylaw committee?
We're working mightily to put the finishing touches on section 590, article 16, which is just some definition updates, and the use table in article 3. We're not going to make it in time, I don't think, for tomorrow, so we're going to have to go for the special town meeting. So that's what I think at the moment.
Alrighty.
But we're tightening. We're trying to tighten up all the things that that we're hearing, like on the decommissioning plan and siting and all those things. And we still haven't heard back from the AG. So I don't know. I guess she's running for governor. She doesn't have time to comment on our.
No,
it's been a year.
No
almost.
time. Yeah, no time to be in the office. She's out campaigning. Community Preservation Committee, Sam.
Been working a lot, as you probably know, on the Little Harbor purchase. Multiple meetings and phone calls and running around, but we got it done. We've been pretty much consumed with that for the past month or so, going into articles for town meeting and requests. That's what we're doing right now, and should have everything done in time for town meeting.
Awesome. And Kenny? Nothing exciting? No, Sam?
Capital planning has done nothing at this point. We had one original meeting, have not met since. Expect one in the next few weeks.
Okay, very good. Serpent falls on me. The stars and the moon have aligned in such a fashion that I have actually been out of state the last 4 meetings. So I'm completely derelict in my duties at Serpent. But I hope to get back on track at this next upcoming meeting. My work unfortunately takes me to Chicago and to Phoenix quite a lot for our stores out there, and it's just been a weird set of circumstances where I've been on a plane each and every time that the Serpent has met. So I'm going to try to get back on track on that so that I can bring information to the planning board. And that is all we have tonight. If anybody else has something else they want to discuss before we adjourn.
I have one quick comment, just so everyone knows. I'll be out of the office for the rest of the week. And Charlie and Carl, we were supposed to meet tomorrow, but we'll have to reconvene Monday, and I'll email you both to talk about a new time to meet, talk about what the sub rules and regs. But if you have any pressing current concerns, just let Ken know. And I won't be able to give you guys the action items this week, so that'll be Monday, but I won't be available for the rest of the week. So.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Will you have the COAs?
Yep.
Will they be prepared and ready, or?
Yeah, they're already prepared. The only thing that has to be added is the condition for LC Hydra regarding the modification. It's just probably a quick sentence, but Ken is aware of that. So, but they are prepared. Ken just has to print them out, and he knows where they are in the files. So they will be prepared, the 2 that got approved tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Sir?
We have 2 applications for members on the board both have been watching all evening. I know it's not on the agenda. How are we going to handle that?
I saw the applications late this afternoon. I think we probably should consider reviewing them personally, if everybody has the application to read, and then have them attend. I think our next meeting is going to be in person. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
I think tonight was our last remote, and then we'll go to in person and a hybrid.
Yeah, March 14th
So
will be hybrid.
Yeah. So if we've got time on the March 14th agenda, it would be nice if we could get them on the agenda at the tail end of the night so that we could maybe spend a few minutes with them and have a Q&A session.
I will make a note of that and put them on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. What do you think, Sam? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Well, let's adjourn. Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, 500 to adjourn. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.